this people apparently do this, but how do they do that? If in fact we always choose what's best, at least what we think is best for us. So Aristotle's explanation involves making some distinctions and then applying them. So the first example is a distinction between having knowledge and actively using it. So I can know geometry, but most of the time I'm not thinking about geometry, and probably you're not either. So, but if I ask you, if I have a right angled triangle, what's the relationship between the sides? You could remember the Pythagorean theorem and remember that the square on the hypotenuse is equal to the squares on the two opposite sides. But a moment ago, you had that knowledge in you, but weren't thinking about it. So Aristotle says there's a difference between having knowledge where you know something, but you're not actively using it, and the case where you're actively using or employing your knowledge. We've got all sorts of knowledge that we're not using at the moment. And there's the other distinction he makes is between universal and particular premises. So a universal premise is about a general claim about what's good or bad. So his example is of dry things benefiting all humans versus this is dry or I'm human. Or we could do it with the junk food example, where you could think in general that healthy food is good for humans, unhealthy food is bad for humans, or the gym example that not exercising is bad for humans, exercising is good for humans. But then that's different than connecting it up to the particular situation and thinking this donut here is bad for me, or not going to the gym now is bad for me. So that's the difference between universal and particular. Do those two distinctions make sense? Do we see what's different in the having versus using, and universal versus particular? Once Aristotle has his distinctions, he wants to apply them. So he says, this is at 1147, 810. Human beings can have scientific knowledge in a way other than the ones we've just described. For among those who have but are not using knowledge, we see a difference in the having of the state, so that someone both has it in a way and does not have it. For example, if the person is sleeping, mad, or tipsy. So in the geometry case, I can just ask you questions about triangles, and then you can start using your knowledge. But if you're asleep right now, and maybe some of you have drifted off, I can't tell. No one has their video on. So then I can ask you a question about triangles, and if you're asleep, even if you can't activate your knowledge. And also, if you're in a mentally disturbed state or you're drunk, you can be great at math, but if you're really drunk or disturbed, you just can't activate or use that knowledge. So conditions of the body and our psyche can actually prevent us from using knowledge that we ordinarily have access to. And then Aristotle says that's actually going to be relevant for explaining uncontrolled action. He continues, surely this is the way people who are indeed in the grip of their feelings are disposed. For spirited feelings, sexual appetites, and things of this sort clearly alter the condition of the body as well, and in some people even produce states of madness. Be crazy in love. So here he's saying, when I get that feeling, when that delicious donut is in front of me, or when someone offends me and I get really angry, that feeling can so overwhelm me that it prevents me from using my knowledge of what's good and bad. So I just can't effectively think about what's healthy or unhealthy when that donut's right there in front of me. or what's proportionate or disproportionate when I'm so angry. And the fact, Aristotle says, that someone talks the talk signifies nothing, since those in the grip of their feelings can recite demonstrations and verses of Empedocles. So here he's saying, I might say, oh, this donut isn't healthy, or, oh, I shouldn't have another drink. But if I'm really in the grips of my feeling, I'll just be saying the words. I won't really be thinking it or meaning it. Or someone smoking can say this is bad for me, but that's not really what they're feeling or thinking when they have that appetitive desire for the cigarette. Whatever. So the idea is the feeling overwhelms them and prevents them from really activating their knowledge, even if they universally know I should be eating what's healthy and not what's unhealthy. They can really only think at this moment about the donut as pleasant and delicious, and they're not really thinking about the donut as unhealthy, and so they don't stop eating it. Okay. So that's Aristotle's strategy, that lack of control is possible because our feelings can interfere with the way